which martial art is the strongest? Is an eternal question, but since it also depends on individual skill, there's no definitive answer. However, in mixed-style matches within Japanese martial arts, the weapon used by the person who achieved an impressive streak of victories was surprisingly unconventional. Kenjutsu, Kyujutsu, Iaijutsu, and bayonet techniques. In Japan, a country of martial arts, a variety of weapon-based martial arts exist. In each of these disciplines, alongside kata, form, practice, sparring-style training methods were adopted to cultivate techniques and body movements that could be used in real combat. While martial arts on the Asian mainland often give an impression of elegant movements, it may be that Japanese martial arts are generally simple in motion for this very reason. That Japanese martial arts place emphasis on practicality in real combat can be confirmed from various historical developments. When karate from Okinawa, formerly the Ryukyu Kingdom, was introduced to Japan, many martial artists on the Japanese mainland were surprised that it consisted solely of kata practice and questioned its practicality. Sparring, modeled after judo training methods, was only introduced after its arrival on the mainland. Toyama-ryu's military sword technique, devised in army schools before and during the war, excluded the mastery of advanced skills known as master-level techniques, and was systematized so that even those without prior kenjutsu experience could learn combat-effective techniques in the shortest and fastest way possible. On the battlefield, one's opponent does not necessarily wield the same weapon. For this reason, combat against different types of weapons has been studied since ancient times. In armored martial arts, kachubuge, there exist kata and oral transmissions for dealing with different weapon types. In reality, many schools were comprehensive martial systems that assumed mixed weapon combat. Furthermore, when fighting in armor, it was often the case that a final blow would be delivered through grappling, such as stabbing a short sword into the gaps in the armor. Thus, in Kenjutsu bamboo sword, shinai practice, it was natural not only to train in attack and defense with the shinai, but also to close the distance and engage in grappling. In these situations, jujutsu techniques became especially important. Additionally, matches between differing weapons, such as naginata versus sword, two-sword style versus spear, or bow and arrow versus iaijutsu, were frequently held in Japan. As seen from the above, it is no exaggeration to say that Japanese martial arts have always developed with real combat in mind. What is less well known is that in modern Japan, the person most often called the strongest in mixed weapon matches was a woman. This time, we introduce her life. A weapon unfamiliar to many of us, the naginata. A weapon with a curved blade mounted on the end of a staff. Though it has existed since ancient times, it developed as a martial art for women during the Edo period, when women were forbidden to carry swords. Even in its modern, sport-oriented form, it is said that about 90% of competitors are women. Even today in Japan, it is not uncommon to see women carrying cases that likely contain naginata as they head to practice in train stations and around town. Sonobe Hideo was a martial artist who held the highest rank of Hanshi in the Dai Nippon Butokukai, the top martial arts organization in Japan at the time. Although Hideo is a typical Japanese male name, Sonobe Hideo was a woman. She was born on April 18, 1870, as the sixth daughter of Kusaka Yozaburo, a former samurai of the Sendai domain, in what is now Osaki City, Miyagi Prefecture. It is said that the Kusaka family had no sons, and since they already had enough daughters, she was named Tarita, meaning enough. Tarita was said to be an active child from a young age, often riding her father's horse without permission and going wherever she pleased. In 1886, when Tarita was 17, she became fascinated by a gekiken, sword-fighting performance put on by Satake Kanryusai's touring troupe in Sendai. Captivated, she immersed herself in the art of swordsmanship. Although naginata was considered a weapon for women, at the time, it was still uncommon for women in Japan to study martial arts. Her father, Yosaburo, was strongly opposed to the idea. However, Tarita ran away from home and asked Satake to take her on as a disciple. Satake, bewildered, repeatedly urged her to return home, but Tarita refused to give up. Eventually, worn down by her persistence, Satake agreed to teach her the Jikishinkage-ryu style of naginata. It is said that Tarita never skipped her daily practice of 1,000 swings. Satake, refusing to go easy on her just because she was a young girl, subjected her to rigorous training, yet she never complained, and 2 years passed. One day in 1888, when Tarita was 19, Satake summoned her and granted her an Inkajo, Certificate of Mastery, along with a new name, Hideo. Hide means outstanding, and O means man, a name meant to signify one who surpasses men. In 1891, she married Yoshioka Gosaburo, a member of the same troupe, and gave birth to a daughter. However, after her husband's early death, she decided, "I cannot continue touring while raising a young child," and gave her daughter up for adoption. Separated from her husband and daughter, Hideo embarked on a warrior's journey across the country, issuing open challenges to fighters of any style or weapon. She even put a bounty on herself, inviting challengers to face her in combat for a cash prize. It is easy to imagine that many people, even those without real skill, would have eagerly signed up for a chance to win money by defeating a woman in combat. However, those who underestimated her abilities soon learned their mistake. None ever managed to claim the prize. By 1896, she returned to a dojo and succeeded as the head of the Jikishinkage-ryu naginata tradition. That same year, she married Sonobe Masatoshi, the head of Chokuyushin-ryu kusarigama, chain and sickle technique, taking the name Sonobe Hideo. In 1897, Sonobe participated in a gekiken, sword fighting exhibition, held on the grounds of Honjo Ekoin Temple. It is said that this was the last gekiken exhibition she took part in. After this, she shifted her focus to the Dai Nippon Butokukai. The Dai Nippon Butokukai was the highest martial arts organization in Japan, established to promote and honor martial arts. It existed from April 17, 1895, to November 9, 1946, and gathered the most skilled martial artists from all over Japan. The Dai Nippon Butokukai had 3 ranks of titles. From lowest to highest, they were Renshi, Kyoshi, and Hanshi. Even achieving Renshi was a great honor for a martial artist. The Kyoshi, who were qualified to instruct Renshi-level practitioners, were naturally of an even higher caliber. And those who attained the title of Hanshi were considered to be on an entirely different level, figures of almost mythical status among martial artists. As mentioned earlier, Sonobe earned the highest rank, Hanshi, within the Dai Nippon Butokukai. When the organization was founded, many of the initial Hanshi were hardened warriors who, just a few years prior, had fought on actual battlefields, using their sword skills in life-or-death combat. Even among such formidable martial artists, Sonobe recorded victory after victory in the open-style matches held by the Butokukai. In 1899, during the 4th Butokusai Grand Martial Arts Demonstration, an annual tournament held by the Butokukai to promote martial arts, Hideo was personally selected by a prince to fight an inter-style match against Watanabe Nobori. Watanabe had been the head instructor of the Renpikan, one of Edo's 3 great martial arts schools during the late Bakumatsu period. In Kyoto, he had reportedly cut down multiple opponents in combat and was said to have even struck fear into the ranks of the Shinsengumi, a group that included famed swordsmen like Kondo Isami. However, he was completely overwhelmed by Hideo's Naginata techniques and forfeited the match before it was over. With this one match, Sonobe made her name resound throughout the world of Japanese martial arts. Sonobe also became a Hanshi, master instructor, in 3 disciplines: Kenjutsu, swordsmanship, Iai-jutsu, sword drawing, and Jojutsu, staff technique, within the Dai Nippon Butokukai, and it is even said that she defeated Nakayama Hakudo, the greatest swordsman of modern Japan. 2 years after defeating Watanabe in 1901, Hotta Sutejirō, Sho's cherished disciple, who would later become a Hanshi in the Dai Nippon Butokukai, challenged Sonobe to a match in the name of avenging his master. Before the match, public expectation was overwhelmingly in favor of Sonobe's easy victory, but by a slim margin, Hotta emerged as the winner. At the time in Japan, applause and cheering during martial arts matches were strictly forbidden, as they were considered distracting to the competitors, disruptive to mental concentration, and disrespectful to the opponent. Yet, it is said that the venue erupted in unending applause and cheers. This is considered to be the only defeat of Hideo's life, though there are differing accounts to be discussed later. But in a later interview, Sonobe remarked, "The claim that I lost to Mr. Hotta is mistaken." Yomiuri Shimbun, January 10, 1955. Thus she left this comment behind. While still a student at the martial arts instructor training school, around 1907, Saimura Goro, who would later earn the title of Hanshi in the Dai Nippon Butokukai, fought Hideo, but because the dojo was narrow and disadvantageous for the Naginata, the match ended in a draw. Another match said to be Sonobe's second defeat was against an opponent wielding a unique weapon, a stick called chikirigi with a chain attached to its tip, and a weighted piece at the other side. In 1936, she opened her own Naginata dojo, Shutokukan, and until just before her death at age 94 on September 19, 1963, she traveled tirelessly across the country, devoted to the promotion and development of martial arts. This is a video of Sonobe herself demonstrating her technique. I have no experience training in Naginata, but even to an untrained eye, it's clear there are no openings in her form. In any martial art, the movements of someone who has completely mastered the basics are beautiful in every single movement. At the time, women's social standing was low, both in the East and the West. To achieve such accomplishments as a woman in a field as deeply conservative, male-dominated, and authoritarian as the martial arts world was nothing less than proof of a level of skill that overcame every disadvantage. Japan B is a channel that randomly shares information about lesser-known aspects of Japanese culture, spanning across various genres.
The Dai Nippon Butokukai was founded to bring together modern Japanese martial arts, promote martial arts, preserve ancient martial arts, integrate techniques with other styles of competition, and honor martial artists. During the Pacific War, it came under government control, but after the war it was dissolved by GHQ, who deemed its nationalism dangerous. What was the Dai Nippon Butokukai that led martial arts to a position unparalleled in other countries and developed techniques to an unparalleled level? The Dai Nippon Butokukai awarded people who contributed greatly to martial arts. The lowest title is Renshi, but simply receiving the title of Renshi from the Dai Nippon Butokukai is proof that the person has first-rate skills in the martial art. The highest title is Hanshi. Some of the early Hanshi were real samurai just a few years before. We will introduce some of the Hanshi who possess top-class skills in each martial art, with a brief profile for each martial art.
When Japan entered the Meiji era, it actively adopted Western culture and aimed to leave Asia and join Europe, regarding the old and backward civilizations of Asia, as well as Japan's own traditional culture, as inferior. In the flow of this movement, Japanese martial arts once fell into decline. However, with Japan's victory in the First Sino-Japanese War, the ideology of enriching the country and strengthening the military gained momentum. As a result, the Dai Nippon Butokukai was established to gather and unify the various schools of Japanese martial arts. Japanese martial arts were revived once more. As Japan plunged into the Pacific War, the Dai Nippon Butokukai was placed under government control and began to strengthen its role in supporting the war regime. It was during this very time that a high-ranking member of the Dai Nippon Butokukai contributed an article to the organization's official publication, Butoku. From this article, we can clearly see the attempt to spread the influence of martial arts to all Japanese citizens. But what was the government's intention at the time? How were Japanese martial arts utilized under wartime conditions, and what was expected of them? It is widely known among martial arts enthusiasts overseas that the Dai Nippon Butokukai, originally founded to promote and honor martial arts, was dissolved by the GHQ after the war. However, what happened between the lines of that history remains largely unknown. The contributions in Butoku offer insight into why the organization came to be dissolved. For those interested in Japanese military history and the history of martial arts, this is a must-see. It is no exaggeration to say that Kano Jigoro, the founder of Kodokan Judo, is one of the most important figures in modern Japanese martial arts. Nearly all Japanese martial arts have adopted a rank system, and nearly all Japanese unarmed martial arts require the use of uniforms, both of which were invented by Kano. By removing dangerous techniques from jujutsu and minimizing the time lost due to long rest due to injury, it became possible to improve skills in a short period of time, and it became a subject studied in schools. Although Judo is an elite martial art, what is less known is that in the early days, students competed in inter-style matches against wrestlers and boxers from overseas, and that Kano himself competed in inter-style matches against jujutsu practitioners. He is known as Mas Oyama, the founder of Kyokushin Kaikan. But he was the first to seek a path to mixed martial arts after the war. He was one of the first striking martial artists to adopt modern weight training. Many of the episodes in the manga based on Mas Oyama are fictional. He resonated with the ideas of General Ishihara, the mastermind behind the Manchurian Incident. He learned karate from Cho, who later became a leader of Koreans in Japan, and he had close ties with the bosses of the two major Korean Yakuza gangs in Japan. It is not widely known that Oyama looked up to Kimura Masahiko, who was widely regarded as the strongest fighter in actual combat, as his older brother, that he had connections with Kimura Masahiko's teacher, Ushijima Tatsukuma, and elders of various schools of karate, that he studied under Yamaguchi Gogen, the de facto founder of Hondo Goju-ryu karate, that there was a feud between Kimura Masahiko and Rikidozan, who is said to be the father of Japanese professional wrestling, that he was the model for Ryu in the video game Street Fighter, and that Kimura Masahiko witnessed Oyama in actual combat. Japanese martial arts dojos exist all over the world today. Many parents choose Japanese martial arts as their children's extracurricular activities so that they can learn good manners. However, it is not widely known that dojos have their own unique rules. This time, we will introduce some of the rules of Japanese dojos. The following 15 are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. Interpretations may vary slightly depending on the dojo or style, but I think they are generally as follows. He is in a photo with a lineup of distinguished figures representing the Japanese martial arts world at the time, including Kyokushin Karate founder Oyama, his master So, Kimura Masahiko's master Ushijima, and others. Sawai has an incredible martial arts background, with a 5th dan in Judo and a 4th dan in Kendo and Iaido. In his prime, Sawai fought an old man who was once praised as the best master in China, and was defeated as if he were a child. Since then, he trained under that man and brought the martial art back to Japan. At the time, Kyokushin karate was the most powerful brand in Japan, but Sawai students who learned Chinese martial arts from China fought against top Kyokushin fighters in a match with their faces exposed. Among them was Matsui Shokai, the current head of the Matsui School of Kyokushin. The result was an unexpected development.